I apologize in advance because this video is going to have lots of shots of my crotch in it, because we're going to be talking about belts as they relate to self-defense. And no, I don't mean as improvised weapons, like I'm not going to take my belt off and whip people with it. No, I'm talking about if you're like a real dude that carries weapons on a belt, and maybe it's a gun, maybe it's a knife, maybe it's both, which is what we're going to talk about in this video, how I set that all up, and why the belt matters, and why what type of knife and where you carry it matters. This belt here, this ain't the belt that your mom would buy you from Walmart. And this knife is certainly not the knife that your dad would buy you from Walmart. And if you grew up without parents, then you probably have a dark sense of humor and that joke shouldn't offend you. This video is sponsored by Core Essentials, who it makes the belt that I'm wearing, and they just sent me a bunch of stuff that I'm gonna unbox, but I've actually been wearing this belt that I've got on for like several weeks now. They sent it to me a while ago. With stuff like this, I like to have it for a while to make sure that what I'm telling you about it is real and legit. But that's not even the best part. They sent me a knife, and look at this thing. Wait till you see this. Look at that. Damn it, I am the worst at this. We'll need this in a second. But this is what you want to see. Look at that guy. Ooh, let's get straight to it. I'll just pull it out. I'll just whip the thing out and we get right down to business. This thing addresses a lot of my concerns. If you're familiar, you know that my relationship with the knife is a storied and tumultuous one. But this thing checks a lot of boxes for me. My main interest in the knife was not because I wanted to become some knife expert. I needed something to get somebody off of me if I couldn't get to my gun. We figured out in tons of videos that getting to your gun and just shooting him is not super easy. And when they feel you go for the gun, they're gonna latch on and stop you from getting to your gun. This is made easier if you're wearing a good sturdy belt. Like, it's not flopping around, it's not moving, like your draw stroke is easier. Even reholstering is easier, and the thing doesn't shift around. And this belt is made of different stuff. But when you can't get to your gun, having a knife that you can get to and you have a positive grip on, and you can use it to get to your gun or use it to get the bad guy to stop doing whatever he's doing, is what I was looking for. And I don't need a knife to be a tool. My problem with other knives in this size is the handle is always too small. This has a big old thick boy handle. Like, I can get a good positive grip on that. Like, that's a real handle. And whether you use this or don't use this ring thing, you've got a decent grip. The back edge is not sharp, but the point is very sharp, and then we've got obviously that edge there. That's exactly what I need. My other problem with knives of this size is generally when they're in the sheath, how they're set up, you usually can't get like your whole grip. Like, you have to pull it a little and then adjust. This one, whether you use the ring or don't use the ring, you can get like a whole grip and then pull it out. I'm going to talk about how I'm going to set this thing up on my belt and kind of the options. In a nutshell, essentially, I like to be able to reach it with this hand with like this type of grip. And in this hand, I like this type of grip. And there's a very specific reason for that. It has nothing to do with like that I think this looks way cooler, which I do. There's a really specific reason that I prefer a forward grip in my dominant hand and a reverse grip in my non-dominant hand. And one of those is that my primary skill set is not as a knife fighter. I'm more a boxer or a puncher. So when I cut his guts out, when I punch with this is a right straight. If it was in this hand, I would want this to be more like a jab or a hook, something like that. Adding the hammer fist, adding that long range uppercut. And this knife is if your primary skill set is as a puncher, like if you've punched more people than you've stabbed, this knife is particularly well suited for that. The curve of this grip sits right back there so that this lines up, not exactly like a punch, but closer to a punch than holding a straight handled knife and trying to do this with it. What I've found in the classes and the actual training and actually trying to stab stuff that I've done is doing this and sticking a knife into something hard enough to do damage is a lot harder than the movies make it look. This sort of splits the difference between a punch and a stab, and we get a little more oomph. Plus we've got these guys back here if you want to reinforce with the thumb, which sometimes I like that, sometimes I don't. In the reverse grip, it orients this thing a little bit more forwarder so that maybe I don't get like a perfect like stabbity stab like that, but even if I came in like this, that would probably be unpleasant. Now, while this video is sponsored by Core and I am going to be showing you some of their products, the advice in here is universal. Like, just whatever you get, you need a proper belt. They don't have to look super tactical. Like, you don't have to look like that guy. You don't have to look like a cop or look like a wannabe cop. They have regular ones too in all kinds of colors. This is just like a regular leather one. This one is, you know, like the tactical version, right? They have a bunch of different colors. I'm rocking like a gray because I think it looks a little more, and they got different colors. They got the greens and the browns if you want to make sure everyone knows that you like the woods. Like if it's important that people know that you like the woods. I like the gray because, you know, I'm a little bit street, you know. I'm very, very street. But they have different buckles. And the buckle, the way that the buckle works, it's like kind of fugazi. The buckle's interesting. The front of the buckle is a fugazi. It's just designed to look like how people think a belt should look. You bite that jammy down like that, and then it has this little track system. From the outside looking in, it doesn't look like much is going on, but it's a pretty high-tech affair. Like, because it doesn't have holes, so it like ratchets into place using this thing. So you can tighten it or loosen it as you're wearing it without taking it off and without doing a bunch of shenanigans. I took my holster out of here, so now I've got significantly more room in here. So all I have to do is pull or even push, and it ratchets down and gets tighter. And then, oh, if I want to loosen it, it's just got a little hidden sort of release right here. You push up on it, and then it'll open right up. I've been practicing with my appendix carry. I've been practicing with my appendix carry and getting used to that. And I felt like, you know, I'm getting a little, so I'm starting to push on my holster, and there's just issues. There's issues with floppy, crappy, you know, store-bought belts. And these are just better. They're just stiffer because they've got a thing. Let's get this thing out. I'm pretty sure in a sponsored spot, you're not supposed to destroy the product. I think that's kind of one of the rules. But if I'm showing off the destructive power of their products, I guess that's okay. This is what's in there. This pretty thin core that when combined with the leather makes it really rigid and really durable. That's some kind of something that's not leather. But all totaled, you get a very rigid thing in a very compact, lightweight thing. I'm the worst at this. The grip choices and your carry choices should inform each other. If I was carrying only this knife and that was my only weapon, which I wouldn't feel underpowered with that, and I would carry it here. That way, my primary method of using it would be this, and even if I just had to cut a box or whatever. But if this hand was tied up, I could also draw it like this. But if this wasn't my only weapon I was carrying, if I was also carrying a firearm, or if you prefer something different, which everybody's carry setup should be very different. But if this was on my offside, like say I was carrying it in conjunction with a firearm, I would carry it like so. And again, that way, if I was fighting over my gun and I didn't want to take my dominant hand off of it, I pull it here, and this is how I've practiced with this hand. Or if for whatever bizarre reason, my dominant hand was free, but I wasn't using a gun, but did want to use a knife, which is, I guess to cut a box. Like if I just wanted to cut a box, that's why I would do that. Training to deploy your knife is probably like the most important thing, but also you got to know, like, can you stick it in somebody? And I have found that most people greatly overestimate their ability to stick a knife in somebody. And I don't mean from like a moral, like, conviction standpoint, which is another issue. I'm sure everyone thinks that they're like could really do it, but statistics and anecdotes say otherwise. But I mean, like, physically, the act of sticking it in something is harder than people realize, and you got to know Like, are you hitting hard? Now, this is not like a skull. I'm not saying this is like a skull, but can I line this point up and actually get it in there is important. While moving, you miss more than you think. And sometimes I end up a little bit off like this, but actually getting it in there in a way that would like deter or hurt an attacker, it's important to know that you know how to do that. The more practice I get actually hitting things with this, the more I can make sure it's sitting right in my hand, particularly because this is a new knife. Like, I gotta make sure I don't bump my knuckle into here, that I gotta actually have a real grip. Sometimes when we practice, we're a little lazy with our grip. If you wanna take a knife and stick it in something that doesn't want a knife stuck in it, you gotta hit that thing a little harder than you think. That requires a little more force than you would think to get it in there. And as stuff moves around, it doesn't go straight, you'll miss. Like, you gotta practice with your stuff or you're a poser. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this knife. I will need more practice with it. It takes some getting used to because it's a little bit different. Ring in the front, the handle's shaped a little different. There's elements from this that I've seen in other knives, but I've never seen this combination, or at least I've never trained with it or played with it or handled it. But to me, this does everything I need it to do. Now, some last little tidbits about the sheath and the mounting. This is sort of interesting to me, this spot right here, because I don't have to wrench this thing out to defeat the tension. If I wanted to pull it out, like maybe more discreetly without a big overt move, I like that I have a little place I can put this and just kind of break the seal on that thing, and then I can get it out the rest of the way. The clip it comes with is this Ulti-Clip, which is a little two-part thing. It's sort of interesting. Here comes one of those crotch shots I was talking about. This is the Ulti-Clip XL. It clips on the belt like that, but this clamps down, and then that thing is on there sturdy. I purposely only use one screw and leave mine a little loose because I actually want this to move. That's my preference. But the real cool part about this Ulti-Clip that it comes with is if you don't want to use a belt, like maybe you're in sweatpants or gym shorts, which is not ideal, but you use this clamp, and now it can grab just about anything. This is just the seam right here, but even if this wasn't on the seam, it has a good amount of tension, so long as that clamp is clamped down. The belt, I can go ahead and give an A+ to. This is the best belt I've ever worn. Hands down, I can say that with a clear conscience. Sounds kind of funny to get that excited over a belt, but if you've ever worn a proper gun belt, you'll understand. And if you haven't, you don't know what you're missing. You put on a belt like this, even if you don't carry a ton of stuff, even if you're not Batman, it makes a huge difference. Once you start wearing real gear, you can't go back to regular stuff. Like, I don't think I can ever wear just a regular cheap belt again. This kind of ruined it for me. It's so much better. Like, you don't realize how much better it is till you put something like this on. And I've had other tactical belts, and it's been my experience that most of them are thicker and bulkier and not as rigid. So they're worse in both categories. This one here, like, checks all my boxes, isn't bulky, is rigid enough to carry my weapons, but not so crazy that it's uncomfortable. And this knife is purpose-built for the same thing. It's very clear that this would make a great backup duty weapon or a concealed carry knife, either as a primary or backup weapon. It's really good at that. My only criticism of this, and this is an easy fix, is that we need a training version of this. We need a trainer, preferably one that fits in the sheath, but it doesn't have to, but we need some sort of training version of this, which Core can easily fix that. I'm going to be doing more everyday carry and weapons-based content, and more knife stuff in particular from the perspective of someone who doesn't fancy themselves some sort of, you know, one of those guys. So make sure you're subscribed if you want to see that stuff. But if you consider yourself a real dude, like, get a real belt.